Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
Associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked,
and sometimes what didn't,
you will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts.
And inspire you to do even greater things.
Before we jump into today's conversation, a special thanks to PM Power Consulting for encouraging and supporting this show right from the start. With over 1,000 person-years of collective experience, PM Power has helped many organizations, teams, and individuals chart out their own journeys of excellence and make progress. Thank you, PM Power. Now, let's move to today's episode. In this thematic conversation on S-curves, I am in conversation with my colleague and coach at PM Power, Anantha Natarajan. In this conversation, Anand, as he prefers to be called, shares various significant S-curves in his personal and professional life, including the decision to enter or choose software as his profession, about migrating to Australia, pursuing an MBA, and also the transition to a leadership role. He also emphasizes the importance of considering multiple dimensions beyond career goals, that is, having multiple S-curves at any point of time for all of us. That could include personal growth, family relationship, financial stability, etc. A very interesting conversation. Listen on. Hi, Anand. Welcome back to the Software People Stories.
Hi, Shiv. Thanks for having me again. Yeah.
And this time it's with a little twist in the sense, normally we just have a casual conversation talking about you, but this time we wanted to focus on this theme of S-curves, particularly since the podcast is also reaching a milestone. So I'd like to hear from you. What are some things that you can recall as some significant S-curves in your life, whether it's personal or professional?
I'm glad you said personal or professional. I found it's a little bit of personal and professional, right? When I think about it, I mean, we typically talk about S-curves in the context of career in a lot of our programs, right? And I kind of realized, often that it's multidimensional. It's a nice two-dimensional curve, right? In the slides. And we typically focus on one of the dimensions. So as I was thinking about it, I realized one influences another, right? So maybe we'll start with something in my career, and then along the way, I'll probably talk about how other dimensions influenced, right? That may be a good way to do it, right? Another thing I realized is it's not always proactive in the sense of, okay, I sat there, reflected on, where am I in my S-curve in my career, right? Or where am I in my career, and then, make a significant shift. Sometimes it's influenced by other dimensions of the journey, right? And of the life journey, you could say. And sometimes it's been sort of forced in the sense of you're not really thinking about it, but it's sort of, there are factors which forced you into that S-curve, right? And I usually found the S-curves, the shifts in S-curve are associated with some decisions. Right? So probably the first major, I don't know if you call it a major decision or something that influenced my decision was getting into the software industry itself. I did mechanical engineering, right? The fifth year, I was really wondering, what am I doing as a mechanical engineer? I really couldn't relate to what that is. And I did get a job in mechanical engineering, right? Okay. And I remember Tata Motors came to campus at the time. I mean, it was long back, right? And they were recruiting engineers, but for their management services division, which is the computer division.
Yeah. Okay.
So I distinctly remember I was not sure if I should go for the interview, right? I was never into computers or software or programming at the time. I remember actually I went and had a call with JV, right? He was in the same wing. So he said, what is this? He was doing his industrial engineering, right? So I said, what is this industry management, I think? So I asked him, what is this thing? Is it worth attending? And he doesn't remember it, but he really encouraged me. He
Oh,
said,
okay.
he said there is a future for computers and software. Imagine what a thing to say at the time. We always associate vision with some grandiose thinking.
Yes.
But he had a vision saying, no, this is going to be a big thing and should be good at it. And I got into it, right? But the good thing about Tata Motors is there was always a fallback, right? Maybe that is another aspect of S-curve, right? When you make big decisions, you sort of want to have a fallback. I don't know, right? For me, the fallback was Tata Motors. I can always get back into their engineering units, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That was always on the cards. They said, yeah, you could do that. But the first day I saw those, IBM 1401s with all the flip-flops, tapes whirring, discs spinning and separate rooms and the size of them. I mean, I just fell in love, right? And I think that has lasted a lifetime, I would say. Probably that was the first sort of a shift or where I made a decision saying, okay, look, this is it, this is what I want to do. You want to be good at that, to stay with that disco. Right? I felt I was good at software engineering, right? That was probably another factor that influenced, right? So that was probably the first S-curve. Some of the other S-curves have been more influenced by other factors, right? I mean, deciding to migrate to Australia, for example, right? There was influence more by financial goals, and because I hadn't saved much money, and I thought although maybe that was just a common pattern at the time. It was not like I was inventing that S-curve. There was another one. Maybe I'll just broadly go through the various S-curves and we can dive deeper into some of them, right? So there was another big S-curve, deciding to go there. And in fact, I went on a lower role, right, than what I was doing when you go there, you just go as a programmer, right? While when I was more like a manager or in Asian Paint Systems executive. So there was another thing with the S-curve, you may have to take what may appear to be a lower start, right? Where you were. Okay. I think another big S-curve was choosing to do an MBA, right?
Okay.
Because at the time, Radhika was expecting, my wife, and I wasn't sure if we want to invest in that, right? I was going to do it as a part-time. It was a full-time program offered part-time by University of Sydney. So at the time, I think there was a shift as in, okay, I got to grow out of this technical thinking all the time into a managerial role. That was another shift. And probably returning to India was another shift, right?
Okay.
Again, didn't need a big vision in the sense, I mean, that was driven more by not financial, but more by spending time with family relationships. That was a big shift. So, and again, it was a bit of a no-brainer because India was booming, right? So it wasn't like a big decision. I mean, career-wise, I wasn't really worried. And so that was another big shift. Probably from there on, there was another shift, which was to move into quality rather than a delivery role. Right? Because there was another shift where it was a sideways movement, but and probably not as rewarding as a career path, right? In terms of status and growth, let me put it that way, right?
Okay.
And but I chose to do that at the time for spending more time with family and stuff like that. That was the influencing factor. Probably the last S-curve has been coming on to PM Power Consulting, right? Leaving a corporate job and coming on to this. That was another big decision. That was probably the first time it was a push factor, right? It was just simply a career. I wasn't sure what I was doing in the corporate, and I wasn't enjoying it as much, right? So that was probably another big shift. Yeah, that's probably a long answer.
It's very good. I see a lot of S-curves. And some of the questions that I had also are kind of, you touched upon them in the sense of whether it was a pull or a push. Right? Now, for some of your decisions, when you said about choosing software, okay, but you didn't have to leave anything except probably the time you invested in learning and being a mechanical engineer or the migration to Australia. was again looking forward to something, now more of a pull aspect. Right. But after you take that decision, like you said, did you have any challenges in letting go of the past? Say, oh, I used to do this. When you said you also had to take a role which was not commensurate with your experience at that time and all that. I wouldn't call them regrets, but sometimes, because these are all positive reasons why you moved or you made that change, sometimes saying that, oh, I could have done it differently, I would have done it differently.
Interesting question. When I was in Australia, initially, it was a sort of first 3 years were probably, I would say, just programming and lower role. But then on, I shifted back saying, okay, look, I want to be a little bit more career focused. I took up a job there and I grew in that career, right? Okay. I was the head of IT at the time, right? At the Institute of Chartered Accountants. It was a great role, great people to work with. See, those were the factors that were influencing me, right? Oh, great people to work with was always a big, big factor, right? But interestingly, right, I think sometimes you don't know. I came back to India, right? I joined a startup, right? I mean, this person obviously had a, the founder had a, stellar career in the industry and he was setting up this company. And one day he called me and told me, right? We had become fairly close. So one day he told me, Anand, you wasted your last 10 years in Australia. Right? You see, that was actually a moment of regret. Okay, when he said that, I wasn't thinking much like that. Okay, but I guess in general, I'm not someone who always compares my career with others' career. In general, right? I was happy with what I was. I felt good at it. But he pointed out, saying that look at what's happened to people at your level of experience in India. Okay. And I went through scratching my head. Oh my God, what have I done? So I think I was sort of oblivious to that. But I think sometimes, I actually think sometimes it's good to have a mentor who can give an outside-in view, when you make those shifts also.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that was a lesson for me out of that. Yeah. So regret, when I switched out of delivery roles to which was the main line function, right, to a support function like quality in a company. There I had multiple times regrets, right? It was a sideways move. I know I was not in the mainstream, right? Our HR would, when I have a conversation, he will blatantly say, Anand, you can't expect the same rewards to support roles as the people who are facing customers and delivery roles, right? And also career path, limited, right? By you're hitting quality, then what? Right? So that there were moments of regret, right? But I think I guess I knew why I was doing it. That's why I say I think this S-curve is a multidimensional thing, right? It's maybe if you look at S-curve, if career-wise, it's just a projection of the career dimension, right? If you look at overall life journey, right? So there have been moments of regret and why did I do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. You characterize this as multi-dimensional. There is always some play of your personal aspirations or expectations, dreams, and professional expectations, and so on. So, from your experience, for instance, when you moved to Australia for a career goal, it probably meant that you'll be away from your family or farther from your family from this thing. So how do those things play out? Because one is about leaving behind a familiar, comfortable environment, going into a new place where you have to probably prove yourself and start afresh.
Okay, I think there are two interesting questions there. One was about the trade-off, right, between family and business. See, that's something I've always believed in, right? That in a multi-dimensional S-curve, right, you can't be pushing on all dimensions at the same time, right? we keep talking about this balance, right?
Yeah.
I actually believe this so-called balance is overrated. I think you achieve balance over a period of time, but every now and then you got to go out of balance in one dimension. Reach a level, stabilize that, then it's like that. It's more like a steps, right? To go from one step to another, there is a push needed in one. So that way I was okay. But interestingly, my wife Radhika was the one who had a greater struggle there, right? Because she had a family and she was the pet, large family, right?
Okay.
And pet of the family. So coming out and those days, there's no WhatsApp, there is no, there's none of this social media. And I mean, there was many people didn't have a phone at home, right? So staying connected with family was mainly through the letters, right?
Oh, yeah.
And invitation cards and I think I didn't have to cope with that so much because I didn't have a large family circle except my parents and stuff. But she for her it was her risk curve, right? In a way. There, and I think she struggled with that. So that is one thing, I think, a trade-off. And I think that supported my philosophy of, you can't be balanced all the time in life. You want to push something else has to give way. The second thing you said is that change, right? You go through a change when you go through S curve. Right? I think this is where I think, you learn from your past S curves, right? I think that's another big dimension, aspect of going through your S curves. When I came from a small town like Virudhunagar to IIT Madras, I mean, that was like it was as bad as like going to another planet. Right? Language was obviously a big problem. Completely different environment, different things, right? And I really struggled through that, right? That phase of my life, right? First year or so. Second year onwards, I started feeling, okay, it's okay. I could cope, right? And the lesson for me was, okay, look, when you make a big change, you're going to not feel comfortable. Many things are going to not look right. Give it some time, it'll become okay. Right? It was a mantra. Right? And that has been I think that's been like a big a belief, or I don't know if it's a belief, but that's helped me immensely, right? When I went to Jamshedpur, again, was Hindi speaking. It was first time I was going to the north, the weather, so many things, right? A job. So I think by the time I went to Australia, I had gone through these two of these journeys, right? And I said, okay, look, this is going to be no big deal. That this is how change works.
Yeah. So that's again the other aspect. One is about this change. And it's also interesting that when I was talking to Paramo on the same theme, he is also talking about coming from a town to IIT and the whole culture and having to adjust and all that. So, yeah, I guess that's something that all of us kind of go through. But then when you said it took about a year and then they could reconcile you, then whether it's the belief or no, you just started accepting those. Having known you, I also know that you're also a constant learner. Like now, when you want to be a coach, you want to do it very, say, in a structured manner, and then you're willing to put in all the efforts and things that are required. When you go through these transitions of S curves, for instance, it could be from bachelorhood to getting married or a family. Right? Now, suddenly, there are probably newer expectations from others. While we talk about S curves from the individual perspective, that's how we started. Adjusting to the expectations of others.
Yeah.
So there are actually two questions here, or maybe just one question. How do you learn the nuances of navigating the new S curve? Because you mentioned having a mentor, whether it was JV or this other manager.
Yeah, input.
But that was before you take the decision.
Yeah. I heard once a talk, right, from a motivational speaker, actually. I think it was Jim Rohn. I can't remember now who. Okay, what are the talks, right? He talked about something called you should have a philosophy for life, right? He said, have a philosophy, It's okay to have career goals, direction, life goals, all that. But he also said, life given a purpose. But he said, as distinct from all that, have a philosophy. Right?
Okay.
So philosophy is like your personal philosophy, right? I found that acts like a compass, right? Not compass, looking at it's like a navigating instrument for you.
Okay.
How do you navigate through these changes, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I used to struggle with that for a lot of times, right? But I think now I have it's a little bit more mature now, that philosophy, right? So, when I first came to IIT, language was a big problem, right? I saw all these other guys who were, probably for people in the cities, it was nothing, right? And those who were also come from, convents or public schools, they were even, their English was sharper, right? Okay. So I think intuitively made one decision, right, at the time, saying, I'm not going to just learn English. I'm going to be really good at it, right? Not like I want to be a language specialist, like, Shakespeare or, that kind of a thing. But when it comes to communicating nuances of what I want to communicate, what I want to share, I want to get good at it, right? That's actually been a lifelong journey. Okay. So it's like I don't know how that decision came about, right? It's about, okay, look, this is something I want to get good at, right? So I've learned that's part of my philosophy, right?
Yeah.
There are things I pick up and say, okay, I want to be good at this, right? Like we talk about coaching now, right? Coaching is something I found I enjoyed, right? I found I was making a difference. And I said, I really want to be good at it, right? So that is one aspect of the philosophy, I think, that helped. That I think that's just one dimension. There are many dimensions of philosophy, but this is one, right? The second thing you're talking about, expectations of others, right? So, in fact, pretty much after I got married, my goal shifted a little bit from I want to be this guy making a lot of money or CEO of a company or whatever. My number one goal became, I want to be a great husband in the eyes of my wife. Okay, I mean, see, it's a shift in perspective that came out of those things, right? Struggles were there, expectations were different and stuff like that. But I found, maybe it came out of the fact that I was struggling to adjust and manage, work with expectations and stuff like that. Okay. But you see, that's why I said this philosophy helps, right? So you see, it led to one more thing. I realized it took me almost 12 years of my marriage, right? Before I sat down and asked my wife, hey, what are your dreams?
Yeah.
See, imagine this. I thought I was a good husband, okay? And this also came through some other mentor only, right? You asked me, have you ever asked your wife what she wants? Because I kept talking about what I want out of life. See, I thought that was, it was a game changer for me, right? Okay, if you want to be a great husband, God, that's a good starting point, right?
Yeah, very powerful.
Very powerful thing, right? But it took me 12 years of thinking I'm a good husband before I asked that question. Can you imagine? So that's why I think this, we can be in this state of, we talk about all the unknown unknowns and stuff like that, right? Blind spots. So there is so much even in expectations and relationships and
nice. So this is again a curiosity question, based on what you're saying, whether it is about visualizing to be the say appreciated husband. Say the ideal husband, because all of us have our limitations and things anyway. Or when you're looking at the next S curve, and particularly when it is based more on a pull.
Yeah.
Right? That is not about saying I'm frustrated, I want to change. But then you're looking forward to something. How do you visualize the unknown? Because you don't know what that is. It's something exciting. You want to do that, but then you don't know how to do that. But the confidence of learning it, all that is there. But what is that new S curve or the big S?
So here is, I think that's why I keep coming back. For me, the S curves have been always multidimensional, right? It's never been one or the other. And I think I don't know if maybe I've said this in a previous podcast. When Radhika passed away, there was about what, 7, more than 7 years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was, I was really, I was shattered in the sense of, I just didn't know. See, this is why I said, now sometimes your S-curves are forced, right? We had about, I had about 10, 11, or dreams or long-term directional goals written down. Out of that, I'm just looking at mine. Out of that, there was probably only 2 that remained out of the 10.
Okay.
See, other it didn't make any sense. So you can imagine, right? Suddenly those S-curves were, it just didn't mean anything, growing in those aspects that I mentioned, right? And it took me actually, nearly 4 or 5 years, right? Thinking about it and coming to figuring out what is my next S-curve, right? And what does that, I think what helped me was visualizing, like you said, now what is not so much the process of the S-curve, visualizing the end state of that S-curve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I think that helped me. So I came back and rewrote a lot of the things and revisualized a lot of those dimensions. And again, I realized, I have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things written down. I'm just looking at my vision board as we speak in front of me. There are 10 things, but I know everything I won't be pushing at the same time, right? Okay. But a lot of things, new things came about. So that is as far as that part, right? But there's another thing which I've learned, that every S-curve I felt I've had association with the right people. Okay. Right? All successful S-curves, let me put it that way. Right? I mean, PM Power is a classic example, right? It just works just because of the people that I'm with, right? Same with, I've got a strong goal in terms of spirituality now. Okay. And again, I'm part of a system which is really helping me go there. So even when I took a lot of my career changes, it was all about the people who interviewed me.
Okay.
So I like these 3, 4 people that I interviewed, and then I must be getting into a good organization kind of thing. So it's that has been a big, big factor. I think the other factor is being, developing a perspective, right? Which you may not always have. You may just have the vision, but like my perspective changed, when Radhika passed away, and I had to re-evaluate and, re-visualize my thing. So I think sometimes the perspective may be yours, sometimes could be learned. Sometimes learned from books, autobiographies, or listening to what the stories of others, right? Exposure. I mean, those are sort of some thoughts that come to my mind. Sure.
Good. Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground, but I have to ask you, what are some personal practices that help you stay grounded in all these S-curves, are transitions, decisions, unknowns, all that there? Is there anything that you would suggest? What has worked for you?
It's an interesting question. I'm trying to think. I mean, multiple thoughts are coming in, but maybe the one thing that has kept me grounded, the 2 things I'll touch upon. Maybe the second one is more important. One is, you see people around who have achieved great things, right? So it sort of gives you some sort of a yardstick in relation to, what is possible and things like that is one. But I think more than that, maybe I'll talk about the second one, right? See, long back, I think it was in my school days, right? I learned this rule saying that do not compare yourself with others, right? Okay. Comparison with others limits you, right? That is something I learned. How I learned that lesson is very funny, actually. See, in all my, sorry if I'm giving a long answer, but see, my school days till 11th final exam, right? I was always the topper in school, right? This is a school in Virudhunagar, right? I mean, yeah. Okay. I was always the topper in school. So it sort of didn't matter. But in the final exam, public exam, SSLC, as we used to call it, right? Okay, the board, I came third in school. Only that exam, right? So when my father used to visit the bazaar and all that, they will condolences from my dad. Oh, it happened. Right. So what I did was I went and asked the guy who came first. He was a teacher's son, interestingly, right? I asked him, why, how did you prepare for the exams? Right? And he gave me some tips. He used to write things down and stuff like that. Okay. Right. So I told myself, okay, there's no, there is, the only competition is with me. Right. Or with the whatever future me. Right? And when I came to pre-university, that helped me immensely. I said, I'm not looking at anybody else around me.
Okay.
It's about me and the books. If I know everything in the book, then how can the exam beat me? You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to believe this. Without looking at the book, I wrote every book without looking at the book as a preparation.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I mean, as dumb as that. Okay. It was just wrote. But that philosophy came into my head at that time. Okay. And I did very well, right? I got a rank in university, right? Which had nothing to do with my school or my town or anything.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized, look, not having this comparison, right? Mindset and just looking at where I want to be in the future me, right? And then working towards it can really keep me grounded, right? It's nothing to do with what's happening outside, right? I mean, I think about even now when I'm a coach, I do learn from what Vishu or some of the others are doing in PM Power and, how they're doing. But I know, I've got I got some, sight set on where I want to be, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's what has always helped to keep me grounded.
Yeah. Wonderful. In fact, I read somewhere that in these competitions, the person who comes first, is actually a little exhausted, saying, "Oh, I worked for all this and I got it." And the person who came third says that, "Wow, I've made it to the top 10. Now there is no scope for me."
Yeah.
Currently, the second position is the most stressful.
Oh God! Okay.
If I had done a little more, I would have been first. No, man, I didn't get it. The feeling of lost it is happening more for people who are second. The third is really a good position to be in because it keeps you motivated to do further.
Yeah.
Nice. So thanks, Anand. That has been a wonderful insights into your personal S-curves. And I have a few takeaways and at least the personal philosophy and not comparing. That's something I've heard some others also say. If you remove the result from the equation, they said everybody kind of performs much better.
Yeah.
The focus on results rather. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Shiv. I think I actually, in fact, thanks for all your curiosity questions also. So I'm also, it has been some discovery also for me, right? In the last half an hour. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People stories.
If you like this episode,
please subscribe on your favorite podcast client
and spread the word in your network.
If you'd like to share your story,
contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.